Okay, great. So thank you for being here today. We were just talking about the things that are coming next, and this is sort of the last part of what I consider the most important part of the study, and that is what your organization is trying to achieve. There's so much that we as the experts or the consultants need to do to help our customers to get started. And a lot of it is more with helping with business processes and understanding exactly what they're trying to accomplish and all those different things before we ever start implementing Nonprofit Success Pack or any of the rest of the nonprofit cloud. And that can always be a struggle. I'm not a patient person. Thank goodness Kathy is much more patient. That's why we make a good team. But and that's why she does office hours, because she's a much better teacher than I am. But we'll have office hours up, and feel free to come this week. But next week, you probably will really want to block that time in your calendar, because we will, I promise, next week start implementing Nonprofit Success Pack. But today's focus, by the end of this class, you want to be able to define the organization's goals for implementing Nonprofit Cloud and its functionality. That often gets lost and left behind. So you'll also be able to identify the pain points that can be alleviated by Nonprofit Cloud and or one of its components, as well as prioritizing those goals and outcomes for the Nonprofit Cloud implementation. So your most important job is to be thoroughly familiar with the business processes, goals, outcomes for the organization. We are not, I repeat, not solving or applying solutions at this point, right? We know we're going to wind up using Nonprofit Success Pack and installing it. But for today, we want to figure out the problems we need to solve before we try and create those solutions. So we're going to look at several tools to do that. One of those is 5 whys. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm losing my voice today. And if you've been in an industry setting, you may already be familiar with this technique. But do you ask why? It's really an important question. Asking questions is important, right? So if you're familiar with Peter Drucker, his quote here really hit me, is that, the most serious mistakes are not being made as a result of wrong answers. There's no such thing as a wrong answer, but asking the wrong question. So you know that you can lead someone down a particular path by asking questions in a certain way. And we don't necessarily want to do that, because we're trying to uncover and understand what our customers, whether they're internal or external, actually need, right? So why is a great question. It doesn't imply anything. One of the ways to look at the 5 whys, start with a problem statement, right? And ask why, and then ask why, and then ask why, and then ask why. Well, the goal being, of course, that you get to the end result. I'll share a personal story with you that doesn't have anything to do with technology. My daughter, Sarah Caitlin, was 19 this summer when we took her and her boyfriend with us to Europe, basically for a month. And we had been in Prague for about 18 hours. That was the first place we went. And she came in that first evening and she was like, well, we've seen everything there is to see in Prague. What are we going to do now? And I said, you've seen everything there is to see in Prague. Why do you say that? She's like, well, because we've seen everything within walking distance of Prague. And I'm like, okay, so you like public transportation. Why don't you use public transportation? She said, because I don't speak the language. I can't even read the words on the public transportation. So we can't use public transportation. And I said, why don't you use Uber or Lyft or to get around? You like those things. She said, because I don't have any more money. So we got to the root cause of the problem. It wasn't that there wasn't anything to see in Prague in the Czech Republic. If you've been, you know, you could spend days and days and days and never see anything, everything. But the problem was that she didn't have enough money to get the places that she wanted to see. So we want to be able to use the same interrogative process with challenges that customers bring up, because they may think they understand the problem, but in order to find a solution, it may take a little bit more digging to do that. So using the 5 whys methodology, let's explore what it might look like at a high level for a membership program. Okay, so I'm going to need you to get interactive and get in the chat and give me some thoughts here as we go, right? So let's assume that our local parent-teacher organization for the entire school district is soliciting memberships. And this is where the bulk of their funding comes from on any given year. The school foundation has a Salesforce instance, but they have never used it to track PTO memberships. The foundation is interested in seeing what Nonprofit Cloud can do to automate their membership system. Everything is very manual at this point and well organized. However, it's also incredibly time consuming, and volunteer time could be better spent recruiting members. How do we help them identify the most important challenges? Does it sound like a familiar scenario? So let's start with the problem statement. It should be concise and focused, not too broad. And after some discussion, it becomes clear that they are struggling with how to provide a quick, streamlined approach to becoming a member and or renewing their membership. So we have the problem statement. Parents and teachers do not have a single easy way to sign up or renew their membership. So we got part of the biggest challenge out of the way, right? So what is the first why question we ask? Anyone? Anyone? Are you thinking? It's actually pretty simple. So why are they unsure on how to sign up for the membership or renew their membership? Right? So if we drill down a little bit more, what would be the answer to, why are they unsure how to renew their membership or to register their membership? There are some things in the chat. Good. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Thank you, Janet. Overthinking it is, I mean, really, and that's the key, right? To restate the problem statement as a why question. Why? Why are they unsure how to sign up? And they may be unsure because there's not a QR code that goes out in every email and that goes, is at every PTO meeting and is at everything that comes home with a child, that they can just scan and find, where to sign up. So they're unsure where to do that. So why is there no QR code? Any thoughts?
Gina asks, why is there no communication on signing up?
True. Why is there no communication on signing up? That's great. And how would you know consistent communication distribution list, right? Why is there no consistent communication distribution list? Right? That's a good next question. So this sort of seems like a two-pronged problem now to me, right? They don't have a good way to communicate on where to sign up, and they may not have a consistent communication or distribution list. And I know you're already solving this in your brain. I can see it from here. Oh, good. Laura's got another one. She's obviously worked with some of these situations. Why cannot parents update their contact information? Good question, Laura Keith. So all these why things that you drill down to, they obviously need a tool to be able to communicate quickly and easily, right? With a consistent list and a consistent place to go to update their membership or to create it, right? So from here, we might say that their goal is to automate the manual process in order to free up volunteer time, make reporting easy and consistent, and provide a simple all-in-one place to become a member or renew membership. That may be our goal, right? If that's our goal, then what do we do with that goal, right? So identifying, breaking it down into these individual goals, right? So the data that will show progress toward the membership goals. Who needs to see the data and why? What's the most effective way to collect the data? And if you're not using that data to make decisions, then why are you collecting it? I've said it before and I say it to my nonprofit friends, so it's not like talking behind their back, but nonprofits collect more data than any organizations I know of. And it's all sitting there somewhere and they never look at it and they never use it to make decisions. Would you all agree that's true?
But they have to have it.
Right. So let's make it useful for them, right? So one of the things that another tool that's handy is thinking about, I don't know if you've ever written user stories. If you come from a very technical background, you probably have. If you haven't, this is a great way to help identify things as you go, right? So user stories generally come in this form of, as a who, I want what, so that why, right? And then acceptance criteria is the next step, but let's go back just a second. So the user stories might be, as a parent, I want to create my membership when it's convenient for me so that my child doesn't miss any benefits because I cannot attend a PTO meeting, right? So essentially I'm saying I want to be able to do this online because I work out of town a lot and I'm not always here when they meet. So I want to be able to do it when I have time to do it and not just at the PTO meeting, right? So that gives us, the more user stories you get from the different who's, right? The who's are your stakeholders. We talked about stakeholder mapping. The what is the functionality. And the why is basically the goal that it satisfies. right? So acceptance criteria is the next step, right? And this is where you measure things. So the parent can easily create a membership online as well as pay, right? The more, and that's a little bit broad, but the more specific you can be, the better. For example, it might be, so the parent can create a membership online as well as pay with 2 clicks, right? That gives you some definition to what you're trying to achieve. And then I promise there's only another step or maybe 2 before you can start on a solution, because that's what everybody wants to really do, isn't it? We want to solve the problems. So let's define the program processes. So you want to create a unique ID for each user story. This is just an example. This was for mentoring, right? And you see the organization is a who, the executive director is a who, the mentee is a who, the mentor is a who, right? If you recognize those here in the user stories, then with those, this helps you correlate the functional requirements. And these become your roadmap for how you're building this out and what you're creating for your customer to meet their actual needs, not just what they thought they want. Because I'm sure you've had customers that come to you and say, we need a mobile app. And my first question is always why? Because they think they need a mobile app, because they think everybody else has a mobile app and everybody else doesn't have a mobile app, but they think they do. And so they're willing to invest, $100,000 in a mobile app when they could have spent half that and had a really helpful, useful integration for Salesforce. So this program processes, these are the functions that we need to actually create. Universal process notation, I want to be sure to hit on because this is also very helpful. I don't know if you've ever used this tool before, but the example you see here is for the Nonprofit Success Pack. And it was provided by Ian Gotts at elements.cloud. They provide a lot of resources on learning how to use universal process notation and implement it. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but I did want you to be aware of it and see what it looks like, because it can be, as a visual tool, it can be very helpful to understand. So how does the organization define success, right? That's the critical key piece to happy customers. So you remember in the last chapter, we talked about V2 moms and smart metrics. Here it comes again, right? But this time we want to define the metrics of success for the implementation of the project itself. Benchmarks become an important part of the equation. For example, last year, the PTO had 300 parents and teachers register their membership over the course of 3 months. This year, once the implementation is complete, they are hoping for 300 parents and teachers to sign up during the first week, and ultimately to have 500 parents and teachers sign up. So the benchmark is that 300 parents last year, right? And the goal that we want to equate to success will be the 300 over the course of a week. So are there other benchmarks that you can think of? If we're going to measure, because we need some success metrics and some benchmarks to go with it. I'll let y'all think on that for a minute. A timeline is another helpful tool in measuring success. In my experience with nonprofits, the 2 things that nonprofits never have enough of are time or money. And bringing a project in within the stated timeline, presenting a timeline to start with, if you've used a tool like Smartsheet, It has dependent fields. So you tell a customer, I need the graphics for this. I need the photos you want inserted by this date. And they don't get it to you by that date, then it moves the timeline forward. It gives them a visual way to see how they are impacting the timeline. On the other hand, if you're not getting done what you need to get done, it also shows them that you're not moving the timeline along. But customers will love you when you bring in a project within the stated timeline without additional costs. That's a huge measure of success. And that will definitely be a standard for you. So implementation strategies and best practices make up 21% of the nonprofit cloud consultant certification. That's a fifth, right? You can't fail this section and pass. Well, maybe, but barely. And these tools that we talked about last week and today are important, regardless of the kind of implementation you're doing. You're the expert, and that's why you've been hired to do the job. Your customers, whether they're internal, like people that I know Laura and Aaron are both embedded in their organizations, but you are the expert, right? And you are the one that deals with those internal customers, you know, the executive directors and the program managers. Those of us like Kathy and I that work in the consulting side, you know, we may have more than one customer, but they're still customers that we have the same challenges that those embedded administrators have. So know where you are guiding them before you start creating the solution. And then next week, we will actually, I promise, start implementing the nonprofit cloud tools themselves. I know that's why we've all hung together this long time. Installing solutions from nonprofit cloud, that'll be next week. If you have not yet spun up a dev org, then please come to lab on Thursday. Is lab on Thursday, Kathy? And let's get a dev org ready. You don't have to implement anything in it yet, but let's get it spun up and get it ready to go for next week. And I don't know, I probably didn't tell Kathy that to put on the homework. But we do have office hours. We have the trailhead badges, right? And some additional resources. So there's a lot, kind of get all this set in your brain. And as we implement nonprofit cloud together, remember these, right? Let's ask questions. Let's actually produce something with it. So great question, Jana. I would suggest, from my standpoint, and I've taught this class before, spin up a brand new, fresh dev org that does not have NPSP already installed in it. Because we want to walk through the settings, all the different, you know, like you said, there's so much flexibility in what can be done that I want to make sure that we don't skip over anything that might be important. So, you know, it doesn't cost anything. Dev orgs are free. And then you'll have one that you can play in indefinitely. It'll be a great place for you to test, think, you know, between now and next week, what you are interested in solving, right? Is there something in your organization that is a challenge for your organization that needs to be solved? Is there a new thought process you have that you just want to give it a try and, you know, throw it out there and see if it is helpful? Because we can do anything we want to do in our dev orgs and it doesn't mess anybody up. And I even have some test data that I can share with you that if you'd like to put some data in your dev org to be able to use. But like this is kind of, you know, go back and review the things that we've talked about over the course of the last several weeks and be ready to start thinking in terms of how we apply this in an actual implementation. Any other questions? Awesome. Anything, Kathy, that we need to remind folks?
Not that I can think of. I did add that, you can't see it right now because I did it while you were on this, but I did add about spinning up the dev org.
Great, good.
And
If you need any help there, like I said, Kathy will be in lab on Thursday. About the
Yeah.
same time, I'll be speaking at Cactus Force. But if you need some help, pop over there, and it's really pretty simple to do. All right.